I would like to invite your attention to the book of Job. We're going to be looking at Job 1 to 3. So the book of Job, Job 1 to 3. So you have Job, then you have Psalms, and then Proverbs. Job 1, reading verses 1 to 3. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared God and eschewed evil. And there were born unto him 7 sons and 3 daughters. His substance also was 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, and 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 she-asses, and a very great household, so that this man was the greatest of all the men of the East. Father in heaven, we give you thanks for your word. We just pray, Lord, that you will bless your words to our hearts. In Jesus' name, amen. My topic this morning is how to achieve greatness. How to achieve greatness. There are many great men in our world today. Men who are very popular, very renowned. We have some footballers who are considered great. We have Wayne Rooney. We have, so many footballers. We have golfers, Tiger Woods, you name it. Men who have gone down in history for their achievements. But also in the Bible, we have some great men. Men who have achieved greatness and men who we look upon with admiration. Among these men is Job. Who was Job? One of the questions we need to ask. Who was Job? And at what time did this great man of God live? The Bible tells us that Job, from verse 1 that we have looked at, that he lived in Uz. And Uz was located in Edom. It was southeast of the Dead Sea, a place in Israel. If you look in Lamentation chapter 4, verse 21, it tells us that. You see, there's not a lot of historical evidence about the time of Job. And so we have to use other passages to bring that up. The events of Job is said to have happened, could have happened, some people said, between Genesis chapter 11 and chapter 12, not long after the time of Abraham. So it's quite strange to see that Job is a man who they put way back in the New Testament in the beginning of times. Now, as I said, there are no historical records to verify or to establish a time. But there are certain events that we can look at to sort of establish the time of Job. According to Job chapter 42 and verse 16, it tells us that Job lived for 140 years after the events that was recorded in the book of Job. So he lived 140 years after that. His lifespan, we could assume, his lifespan could have ranged anywhere between 180 to 200 years. So we could assume that probably he was about 30 and 40 after the period that we look. So this fits in quite well with the patriarchal period. We notice from Genesis chapter 24 that Abraham lived for 175 years. Job's wealth is measured in terms of livestock. Just as Abraham and Isaac and Jacob wealth was recorded. In Job 1 verse 3, which we're looking at, Job 42 and verse 12, it tells us that his wealth, his riches, it was measured in terms of livestock rather than in silver and gold. There were no reference to Israel. There was no reference to the Exodus. There was no reference to the Mosaic law, and also no reference to tabernacle. This caused us to fit it in with the Abrahamic period. Also in Job chapter 1 verse 7, when he spoke of the Chaldeans who murdered his servants, At that time, we noticed that the Chaldeans, they were nomads. They have not yet come to live to become city dwellers. Job also is referred to as a priest of his family and offer sacrifices. So we can see that we could put Job very much in the Genesis period and very much into the Abrahamic time. Let's look at the man Job. Who was he? The Bible tells us of certain qualities that Job possessed in verse 1. It says that Job was a perfect man. He was a man that was perfect. A man who was perfect and upright. And last week, I talked about Christian perfection. So this fits in quite well. That Job was a perfect man. And in other words, we look at his perfection here to say that Job served God wholeheartedly. Job was a devoted believer. He believed God and he committed himself wholeheartedly to God. Job loved God. God was given first place within his life. The Bible not only tells us that Job was perfect, but the Bible says that Job was also upright, which means he was a straight man. He was upfront. He was not involved in a lot of dodgy deals or backhanders, as you name it. He was honest. He was a respectable man. In fact, he lived by the rules of his community. And one of the things we notice about Job is that he normally go out in the city, sit at the city gate, and people would come to him and he would give them advice and instruction. Job, he was perfect. He was upright, but the Bible said he also a man that feared God. These are very outstanding characteristics, very outstanding qualities about Job. He had a deep reverence for God, a man who feared God. To fear God, not to have a fright for God, but when you talk about somebody who feared God in the context here, he deeply reverenced God. He respected God highly. And he worshiped God with a clean heart. Let's look at his achievement. So first of all, we look at his qualities. 1, that he was perfect. 2, that he was upright. 3, that he feared God. And also that he hated evil. Job wasn't a man that embraced evil. He hated it. He was despised it. He was pushed evil away. And if we are going to live, if at all we are godly, if at all the love of God within our hearts, we will naturally hate the things that are evil. Very, very good qualities about Job. His achievement. First, we note that God, he was blessed by God. He was a man that was blessed by God. In verse 1, the Bible tells us in chapter 1, verse 2, that he had 7 sons and 3 daughters. And in those days, a symbol of God's blessing was based on the amount of children you have. So, in those days, if you cannot have children, it was perceived in those days that the curse of God is upon you, or you are not blessed by God. 7 also is symbolic as perfection. So here Job has 7 sons. And in those days again, sons were more important than daughters. Ladies, sons were more important than daughters. So it was a time, Job had 7 of them. So in terms of perfection, Job meet all the qualities. But not just that. In verse 3, which I'm looking at, is that Job was blessed with possession. Job, in other words, was a rich man. The blessings of God was upon him. And verse 3 tells us 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and you name it, goes on and on. Who could Job be compared with today? We probably would say Job could be compared with Richard Branson, the head of Virgin, very rich man. Or we could say Bill Gates, who is one of the, I think probably one of the 5 great rich men of our time. At one time, Bill Gates was above, but the other people have gone ahead of him. These men are men who have achieved greatness. Now, what can we learn? What does this tell us? What lessons can we learn from Job's experience and his character? First thing that we can look at, there's nothing wrong in being rich. Nothing wrong in becoming rich. Nothing wrong in having material wealth or possession. There's nothing evil about it. Now, when you study Buddhism, you will notice that the Buddha, he was a prince, he was a rich man. His father seemed to have shielded him from the outside world because he said, I don't want you to become corrupt. Because when he was a child, someone said to him, you are either going to become a prince or you are going to become a preacher. His father shielded him because his father said, you know what, I do not want you to be corrupted by the evil society in which we live. So his father shielded him. And one night the Buddha, he wasn't called a Buddha then, he was Siddhartha Gautama, he's just left the palace. He secretly left the palace and he saw a number of things. He saw a poor man, he saw hunger, he saw starvation, he saw, poverty. And he left his palace and dressed himself, and of course he became, as you know, what he is today. So within Buddhism, there's a notion that you should not have anything. The notion that the things of this world, money, possession, you name it, will corrupt you. And even in the 3rd century, within 3rd century Christianity, mainly in 270 and 271 BC, one of the great man that was known as a hermit was Anthony the Great. These men, they would leave society and they would go out into the desert of Egypt and live. Because what they say, the world is corrupt. People are corrupted. And in order for us to maintain our Christianity, in order for us to maintain our holiness, we need to move away from the corruption of the world and isolate ourselves and be seclusive. Hence we have the birth of monasticism and asceticism. We have what is known as the Desert Fathers. And these men, yes, even though they had gone to the extreme, but they have helped to maintain certain things within society. Christianity, we can see, was influenced by great Eastern culture. And today, that same notion sometimes still exists. The influence of Eastern monasticism seems to still exist within the church and within Christian circle. So the notion is that if you are going to be godly, you need to move away from material possession. You should not have anything, because these things will corrupt you. Money and material possession are just resources, but God put us on earth as Christians to have some of these things. Money and material possession, they are not evil within themselves. But the Bible tells us that the love of money is the root of all evil. The love of these things is not themselves. So within themselves, money or whatever we might possess, they within themselves are not evil. But to love them, the love of that is what becomes evil. There's no poisonous proprieties in riches. There's no poisonous proprieties in having possession of this life. So the notion that we should fear it and run away from it like the plague is not consistent with biblical teaching. There's so many rich people that we have in the Bible. Also, there's a notion that poverty is religious, or the more poor you are, is the more godly you will become. I remember back in Jamaica, my superintendent within the church that I was pastoring at the time, he had this notion that believers, you should not own anything. You need to be poor. And they see at the time, they see God's provision is when you have nothing and then you go down on your knees and you pray and you ask God to provide something for you, and then someone knock your door and they bring something and say, brother, I feel led of the Lord to give you a loaf of bread or something like that. Yes, I do believe that God operates within that sphere, but God is much more beyond that. So one should not believe that poverty is something that you need to have because it will make you rich. Why do some people lack? Why is it, my friend, that some people lack? One, as I've said before, it is seen as a sign of spiritual elitism. The more poor I am, I talk about Buddhism, is the more godly that I am. The more poor that I am is the more godly that I am. But sometimes, my friend, it is a sign of people's laziness, people's unwillingness to do something for themselves. And I do believe that such mentality needs to be changed within the church. Such mentality needs to be changed within the Christian realm. God does not want us to be in lack. I believe, as I said, it's a cloak to cover laziness at times and a lack of ambition. Christians, I believe, need to be ambitious. We need to aspire to succeed in life. We should not have the mentality that we cannot achieve. Sometimes there's a mentality that we cannot achieve. Society owes me everything. I cannot make it in life. Life is so hard. We are going through an economic recession and I cannot make it. All these negative mentality that we have sometimes that keep us in a situation of dependency. I am not saying that we will not face difficulties, but we should not throw up our hand in despair and say, you know what, I can't make it. You know what, I am not educated. You know what, I have no skill. I have no ability to do things. God does not want us as Christians to walk about with such mentality. The question I want to ask here, how did Job become wealthy? How did Job become wealthy? The first thing here, wealth is not automatic. It's not going to drop within our hands or within our lap. Or for us to have or to achieve something in life, and not necessarily riches now, my friend, but for us to achieve things in life, it's not going to drop on our lap. We're not going to sit down and say, you know what, God promised to bless me. God promised to supply my need, and then I sit down and do nothing. It's not automatic. The question I ask when I look at how is it that Job in this context, and even Abraham, you name it, achieve their wealth? Look at the Bible. It tells us, verse 1, verse 3, it said, his substance also was 7,000 sheep and 3,000 camels, and you name it. This tells me that he was a farmer or he was a shepherd. So one thing that tells me here that this man's wealth did not just come automatically, but it come through hard work and application. And if we're going to achieve, we might not get rich, we might not get wealthy, but if we're going to achieve anything in life, we have to be prepared to work hard. Not just sit back and say, you know what, society owes me this. I cannot achieve. We must be prepared to work hard. And I believe here that Job was a hard worker. I believe that Job applied himself unto his job, applied himself to achieve something. So the promise of God's blessing did not just drop in the lap of Job. The promise of God's blessing on Abraham, which we looked at in a few weeks ago, did not automatically drop in their lap. I believe it came through hard work, came through sweat. And the thought for us, my friend, whatever we're going to achieve in life, no matter how we talk about the blessings of God, unless we're born in riches, unless we're born in plenty, unless we are going to achieve something from a parent or family who die, we need to work hard to achieve what we can achieve. Put our shoulder to the wheel so that we can gain the blessings of God. I strongly believe that Christians should not just sit down and say, I can't make it in life. I will not achieve. Christians, I believe, should be positive, should be hardworking, should be determined. Don't say, God has promised me riches and blessing, so I'm going to wait on God for it to come. I don't believe we should be satisfied to live a life of constant dependency and suffering. I do believe that God needs teachers, nurses, doctors, builders, drivers, musicians, you name it. God needs all of these things, not these people. How did they get there? If we look at Bill Gates, we look at Virgin, how did they achieve what they have achieved? Some time ago I was reading about Virgin, what's his name again? Richard Branson. You know where he started? He started doing a little shop, isn't it? A little shop. He started to sell a few things. And he grow, and look where he is now. We will not start at the top. We have to start at the bottom. I hope he doesn't mind me saying, but I can't remember where we were talking, but he was just sharing with me about where he started. You know, at the moment that Palm, of course, he employed quite a few people, and he has his business. How did he start? And it was quite intriguing to hear him say this. He started as a carpenter on a building site. And when I was asking him, and he was telling me, he said there was something that he did not want to do, but he had to do it. Digging holes on a building site. That's where he started. And then he moved up the ladder. And when the opportunity, there was a vacancy that comes up for him to be like a foreman in my terminology there. And God opened the way and he took that on. Still working on a building site. Still working there. And then as he was saying to me, while he was working, inspectors used to come on to inspect his job, inspect what he does. But one of the things that when I listened to him, what he was talking about, whatever he was doing, he did it good. Working on the building site, he did it good. His work was admired by people. And whatever field we are in, my friend, do a good job. Do a good job. This might not be where you want to reach. But in order to get there, sometimes you have to start at the bottom. You have to start at the menial things. Sometimes to get somewhere, we have to start probably as a volunteer. And I remember somebody from Muriel's workplace, I'm not going to call the name. But he started as a volunteer. And now he is in a very big job within the city council. I'm not necessarily saying that you have to do this. But what I'm saying, my friend, sometimes people say, you know what? If you allow me to use the term. If Palmer said, you know, I want to be an architect. I want to be a businessman. And then he said, I will not move. I am not going to work on a building site. I am not going to be a carpenter. I am not going to start to dig holes on a building site. Until I can get into that office, until I can start to employ 5, 10, 15 people, I will not start. He would not be where he is today. I'm talking about Job, my friend. How did he get there? I don't believe that Job started out as a rich man. I believe that he started very small. and he built himself up. We as Christians, if we are going to achieve, we need to be prepared to start at the bottom and build ourselves up. Why was Job prosperous? I asked myself, looking at verse 3, his substance was 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 she-asses, and a very great household. How did he get there? You see, there are so many things that the Bible can't tell us, because the Bible says if they were to record everything, the world could not hold the book. But let us use our practical sense now to find, how did Job achieve his wealth? You know one thing I believe? He did not waste or squander his resources. If we're going to achieve in life, and as I always say to a lot of people, and I sometimes say to Roxanne, sometimes it's not the money that we earn, but it's how we use it. You have some people who are a million who earn thousands of pounds and they are in debt. But Job managed the resources that God has blessed him with. He managed it. He did not waste it. He did not squander it. We need to realize that we are just here stewards. The things that God has entrusted on us or in us, we need to use it wisely. You know, there's some believers who are spendthrift. Some believers who waste things. The moment they get the money, they can't wait to spend it. And I'm not saying that we should be misers here. You know what I'm saying? But they can't, it's almost like it's burning holes in their pocket. They can't wait to get rid of it. When God blesses us with things, we do not care what we have. I believe that for Job to get where he is, he was not a squanderer. He was not wasteful of the resources that God has given to him. I believe that Job he was a man of vision, and he think about what he has. He think about the things that God has given unto him, and he was wise in what he does. I am talking about, my friend, how are we going to achieve in life? How are we going to achieve, are we going to make progress in life? Not as squanderers, not as wasteful people, not as people who do not value the things that God has given unto us, not as people, my friend, who do not take note of what we have and be positive in our spending, be wise in our spending. Say, what does this have to do with Christianity? I'm talking about practical stuff, which are biblical. The other thing that I say to myself, how did Job get his wealth? And I believe here that Job invested. He invests his resources. And Christians have to be wise in what they do. He invested some of what he had. He did not just have 7,000 sheep, 500 yoke of oxen. I believe that he had some sheep and he buy more sheep, or he breed the sheep so that they expand in number. He would have gone out and get himself land and buy. He invests things. And Palmer preached a message a few weeks or months ago about the talent. That God gave one talent, 2 talents, and he gave the other 5, he gave the other 10. And they invested. They use it wisely and it grow. It's not the amount, my friend, that we have. Some people believe in order for me to have something, I must be earning £1 million a year. I am not going to take a job unless they are paying me 30, 40, 50,000 pounds a year. As a result of that, we miss the blessings of God. We do not put ourselves in situation where God can bless us. God's blessing cannot come upon us because we're sitting down doing nothing. We see ourselves as defeated. whatsoever God has given unto us, use it wisely. If it is £1, if it is £5, if it is £10, my friend, be wise in the way that we use it. If we have £20, don't just spend it off. What can I do with this? How can I try to make an investment? Because many times people think of investment and we're just thinking of buying big properties, big loads of land, or you name it. Our investment can be very small. It's the wise use of our sources that God has entrusted unto us that will give us blessings and make us great. And I believe that the wisdom of these things were used by Job. And I believe, my friend, anyone, if we're going to achieve in life, we have to be wise in our spending. We have to be wise in the way that we use the things that God has blessed us with. Why do you think that God gave that man 1 talent? Yeah, I eat it. Because there are sometimes God has to start us off small. And when we show our ability to manage the small things, then God can bless us with more. Job was a wise man in his spending. He was a wise man in his investment. He was a man that was visionary in his planning. We need to be visionary, my friend. Let us not look around here. We need to be looking beyond. Forgive me to say this, but there were some people in life, and well, you know, I looked and I always say, I am not going to be like that person. I saw some ministers, forgive me to say this, but I knew a minister in this country who I worked with. His car needed a wiper blade, he couldn't even afford it. We have some ministers in Jamaica. They cannot leave the mission home because if they do, they have nowhere to live. There was one of our ministers who, while he was in pastoral work, he managed, he owned one of the biggest VW business in the country. Excellent man. He reached retirement with nothing, not a home to live in. What am I talking about, my friend? I'm talking about people who lack vision, people who don't plan for the future, people who don't make preparation. And I'm saying this is very much a part of Christianity. We live in this world, this real world. So we have to be very, very sensible in what we do. And then we say, you know what? God is not good to me. God, look where I am. But what is it that God has given? What opportunities God has given unto you? Are we making benefits, best things with our opportunities? Are we doing the things, my friend, that will help us to achieve? You know, some of the things that I see within church sometimes. And sometimes we say our children are not in church, sometimes. Because many times within the church it is perceived Christians have nothing. I don't believe in prosperity ministry. I'm telling you now. So don't believe that I'm preaching prosperity ministry. I don't believe everybody's going to be rich. But I'm actually saying here that sometimes the way we live and the vision, the lack of vision we have, the lack of planning for the future, it discourages our children. And it is perceived sometimes, it's almost like Christians are only poor people. Can't live from hand to mouth. There are opportunities that we need to take. Take opportunities. Go and learn a skill. Go back to school. Learn something. Learn a trade. Do some voluntary work where you develop some skills. There are things that we can do to help ourselves as Christians. It is a part of Christianity, my friend. And if God bless us with 10 pounds, don't spend it off. How can I put away a pound here? Can I put away a 50p here? You know, some people don't believe that they cannot save until they get £1 million. In order for me to save, I must be earning I must be taking home £3,000 a week or £3,000 a month. I have this to spend, this. We need to be sensible, my friend, in our transaction. It is a part of Christianity. It's a part of being responsible. It is a part of preparing ourselves for the future. Job was a rich man. Why? He was wise in his business transaction. He think and see what he can do to further himself or to better himself. But let's just move a bit further on this. The Bible tells us that Job was an upright man. He was righteous and he was God-fearing in chapter 1 verse 1. What does this have to do with in relation to riches and wealth? What does this tell me about Job? Job did not climb over others to reach it up. Otherwise, he would not be regarded as an upright man. He would not be regarded as a righteous man. He would not be regarded as a God-fearing man. You see, there are some people, in order to reach the top, they have to climb over others. They have to pull others down. They have to destroy others' reputation in order to get to the top. Let's not achieve our wealth by destroying the life of others. Job was not dishonest in gaining wealth. Otherwise, he would not be perfect, as the Bible says. He would not be upright. He would not be God-fearing. So, my friend, we should not achieve our wealth through dishonest means. Job, I don't believe, was a gambler. His riches did not come through gambling. His riches did not come through doing dodgy deals. Otherwise, he would not be a respectable man in his community. Job 29:11-16, when you get some time, read it. Job 29:11-16. Job was not greedy. He was not selfish. He was not stingy, my friend. You know, there's some people who are so stingy, they're just for themselves, so selfish with the things that God has entrusted them with. You read those verses. Job helped others. You go back and read those verses. I don't have the time to go through that. So as Christians, the things that God has entrusted us with, we should not be selfish and just keep it to ourselves. We should not be stingy and greedy. Everything is about me, being very gravelicious. He used some of his resources to help the needy. And you know what I think about Job? He was not covetous or envious. You know, there's some people can't see others have. When they see others have, it upsets them. Only they alone should have. But Job, my friend, being a righteous man, being a godly man, a respected man, he was not covetous. He was happy when other people were blessed. He was joyful when other people achieve in life. There's some people like that. They're upset when you achieve. If you even drive a nice car, they can't stand to see it. They can't be happy for you. If God bless you with a home, they can't be happy with you. If you wear a suit of clothes or a pair of shoes that looks nice, they are not happy. Job was not like that. We're talking about a man who achieved greatness, but at the same time was a man of integrity. We're talking about a man who was rich, but his money and all his material possession did not get to his head. What does the prosperity of Job mean to us? Doesn't mean we're all going to become rich. I'm not teaching that. It doesn't mean that we all going to have a lot of material possession. But it means that we can be ambitious. It means that we can be visionary. It means, my friend, that we can plan for our future. It means that we can make preparation for our children. It means, my friend, that we can be honest in what we do in our business transaction. It means that we can be resourceful, that we can achieve things in life, that we can be positive and believe in ourselves, that we can gain things in life. It also means that the blessings of God is not going to drop in our lap while we lie in bed for all day. It means, my friend, when we are trying to achieve and we come upon difficulties, we do not just give up and say, you know what, I can't be bothered. It means that we are going to be determined in what we do. Like Job, we can be perfect, we can be upright, we can be God-fearing, we can be hardworking, we can be resourceful, we can be innovative. We can achieve in life without climbing over others, without being greedy, without being covetous. We, like Job, can achieve. May God bless you.